Coming up on this edition of Safari ChangeMakers.
They wanted a 300-bedded hotel on this most sensitive environment. So we sat there and we said, right, you can have a 300-bedded, but understand the number of people of staff is going to be small. You go to the Botswana model where you have 12 rooms, over 100 people employed, and boy, the lights came on. And that's what we were fortunate to settle up with.
This is Safari ChangeMakers. Conversations with Africa's most innovative visionaries, the guardians, pioneers, and trailblazers, offering solutions to the most pressing challenges facing the continent. Over-tourism, human-wildlife conflict, the climate crisis, and environmental degradation. Conversations that reveal bold strategies for sustainable tourism leading to economic opportunities for indigenous communities while protecting local ecosystems and wildlife. Here's your host, founder of Artisans of Safari, recognized by Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler magazines as one of the top travel specialists for Africa, Karin Jones.
Today is part 2 of our discussion with a true safari pioneer who dates from the early days of the industry and gives an historical perspective on regenerative tourism in Africa, as well as an inspiring blueprint for the future. An esteemed author, legendary guide, and co-founder of Wilderness Safaris and Natural Selection, Colin Bell.
At your level, you guys control the money. And if we're going to make a change, and a really big positive change, first of all, we need more tourists in Africa. I mean, yes, we've got a couple of hot spots where we've got over-tourism. But generally, if you look at the map of Africa, you of the world, you put out there, and you can put the whole of the US in the bottom part of Southern Africa. Then you can put the whole of China. Then you can put the whole of Europe. Then you can put the whole of India. And you can put and we still got space left over. So we got this massive continent, but we don't even have 5% of world tourism. So we need more tourists to come to Africa. Because, people say to me, how can you contribute to conservation? I say, well, first of all, go on safari. Where is it that you can go on holiday and be a positive contributor to the planet? And the one industry is traveling to Africa, because we desperately need your cash. And in amongst what you pay is all these other things which are needed to maintain the environment, to maintain communities, all the rest of them, to create jobs. So we need more tourists. And we need to make sure that the good guys are supported and the pirates are slowly eased out of the industry, or they migrate across to becoming the good guys. And if we can do more tourism and making sure the good guys get the cash, get the lion's share of the revenues and the bed nights and the support from the Travel Channel. And that's why your level, Karin, is now becoming the most important level of this whole tourism chain, because the lodges are generally doing the job on the ground. We're doing as much as we can, but it's where the money's going and which area is going to be supported. And it's a case of, when you've seen that 95% drop off of lions, we keep coming back to, it's not right at the moment. And we have to really now make changes for the good of the future. And your section, where you're taking first world money, and we've got to work out where it's going to be paid in the third world to do the best for the guests. Obviously, experience is still paramount. We've got to make sure everybody has a great experience, and that at the same time, we're doing the most on the ground for the benefit of the environment and the benefit of local people.
So with brands like JW Marriott and Ritz-Carlton now entering places like the Masai Mara, I worry about more leakage out to these big companies, profits leaving Africa. Do these big names actually add any conservation value, or are they just exporting the wealth? And should we be worried about these companies coming in, or?
Absolutely. That's the single biggest threat we've got.
Yeah.
Because we've now gone from being an extractive industry to a non-extractive industry. Now, are we going to go back to being an extractive industry? And extractive is not only just the color of your sewage and what's happening out there, but it's where the money's going.
Yeah.
And if the money's mainly going offshore for fees, as what will happen with these big brands, I'm really, really worried. I mean, there's one of the big hotels in Livingston on the Zambezi Valley. I mean, it's like a big holiday inn. It should never have been built there. The problem is these big brands have got muscle, and governments, there are people inside governments who do need a brown envelope now and then to see them through. And the big brands find it easy to get concessions and to get, well, by concession, I mean a right to be in an area. So these big brands are able to muscle their way in, and a lot of the there's a brand in the Serengeti. Oh my goodness. The first time I flew over it, I thought it was a city. And I thought, what is being built in the Serengeti, which is like a city? It should never be there.
Yeah.
And it was built. And so that place and your trade, your level, Karin, your level is supporting these brands. It's extraordinary.
I know.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's just common sense, guys. We want the money to go as deep and as far into the society as possible. And a big brand, I'm sorry, there is leakage, and there are brown envelopes, and we've got to be very, very conscious. There's already way too many lodges in the Mara. I mean, when we put our toe in there in another business in 2006, already there was a moratorium on. There were too many lodges, and now they're almost doubled.
Yeah.
It's a travesty. And the biggest problem which we've got is that governments right today, when they see a success story, they think, okay, by putting more of the same success is going to make more and more successful. But what governments have to start learning is there is a carrying capacity. Rather have fewer people paying more. You have less of an imprint. You have less impact on your local community when it comes to negative influences. But the fewer people you got, the more you can charge, and the more a person pays, the more services they demand, the higher level of service, the more people employed. I'm involved in the project down on the wild coast of South Africa called Umgabati, where it's the very first provincial game reserve in South Africa, which is owned by a community. And it's a long story, but 100 years ago, their ancestors were thrown off the land. And in the new South Africa, if you were thrown off the land, you could claim to get your own land back, and they've claimed they own this reserve. So when we first started to negotiate with the community, it was out for public tender. They wanted a 300-bedded hotel on this most sensitive environment.
Oh, gosh.
And we had a look at this at 300-bed. And there was an example about 100 kilometers away in a place called Margate of a 300-bedded hotel. And we went there and we found out that the 300-bedded hotel employed 30 people. Then we took the Botswana model with 12 rooms, and we had over 100. So we sat there and we said, right, you can have a 300-bedder, but understand all those beds mean the price comes down, that the service levels goes down, it's a buffet breakfast, etc., etc. The number of people of staff is going to be small. You go to the Botswana model where you have 12 rooms, over 100 people employed, and boy, the lights came on. And that's what we were fortunate to settle up with. But you need a community which is prepared to listen and go through those kind of learning curves and to get an understanding. But to go and put these big brands in there and massive big hotels in the Serengeti, no. And the Vic Falls now, Livingston, I get the heebie-jeebies.
And also, you mentioned the idea that, people go to just a few, limited places, the Masai Mara, Victoria Falls, and there's so many other areas with beautiful community lands and in areas that I think it's our responsibility, as you said, to show people other places that they can go that are not over touristed and help them broaden, not necessarily not go to the Masai Mara, but go to the Masai Mara and go up into the Matthews Range or, in different parts of Zimbabwe, other areas that they may not have heard of.
Absolutely. And also you can go when everybody zigs, you zag. So in the
Yeah,
Masai Mara, I mean, some of the best times I ever had in the Masai Mara have been in April. And you go out there, you don't see a soul.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
remarkable, the fresh air and just the light and the beautiful scenes and all the rest of it. I mean, I took my wife to Masai Mara in August once, and she said, "Don't ever bring me back here again. Do not." And that's the last time we've been in August. It's awful.
It's
But you go in April and you get out of season and all the rest of it. It's magnificent.
yeah,
And I think there's that. As the trade, I think you've got to do two things as the trade, as a kind of broad thing. You've got to, explore all these wonderful new areas because they have so much to offer, so much to give. Extraordinary. I mean, we've got one concession, no names. It's 130,000 hectares. Sorry, 180,000 hectares. 108. That's 440,000 acres. They've got seven
wow.
tenths. I mean,
Seven.
that's 3 times the size of Singapore. 7 tenths. Now, wow. I mean,
Yeah,
that is just that's paradise. Would you? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
if you gave me Masai Mara in August,
Or 7/10
yeah,
in
in 440,000 hectares.
yeah,
Oh my goodness! And
yeah,
that's where I think the trade is sometimes. And I'm so supportive of the travel trade and the travel channel. The travel channel, because what you've done, all you folks who've really been out and about, you get to know Africa well. You understand what's out there, and you understand what the guests need. Because so often, Camp A might be fantastic for X number of guests, but Camp A is terrible for others. And it's your job to make sure you get the right camp and the right guests married together. So that's the one part, but it also to give the guests the best experiences and not to just be cookie cutter because
yeah,
it's so easy. Just send people to the Masai Mara in August. I mean, that's so simple. But it's counterproductive to everything. It's bad for the area. It's bad for the planet. It's bad for it's just abysmal. And I think that's where the Travel Channel has to start doing more, and why the specialists like yourselves and there's a whole lot of these specialists around the world. People are passionate about Africa, have been traveling there forever, often know Africa better than many Southern African or East African travel consultants because you've been more places
yeah,
and more often over the decades. And why it's so important that you guys lead the charge, getting people out into these wonderful areas. I mean, we're starting a crazy sort of itinerary division. I mean, we go to places like Zakuma in Chad, and we go to Angola and all these wonderful places. And we do all these fancy, and these trips are just magnificent. But from on your end, they're hard work because they're not just a press of a computer and out comes the same itinerary you've sold 500 times. It takes a bit of work and a bit of care and also choosing the right person to go there. But that has to happen. We've got to start getting more people to these wonderful parks in the middle of nowhere, which have got almost no occupancy and who really do need the love which is created by tourism, jobs, park fees, training, revenues, even tips. Tip
yeah.
little simple thing like tips. Oh my goodness, they make such a difference to a family. Just they just elevate a family from survival to really living well. Simple little thing like tips.
Yeah. We've covered many different things. One of the questions I had wanted to ask you was that I think travelers today are bombarded with a lot of terminology like eco-friendly, community-based, which we've talked about, sustainable. So you've kind of you're a person who's actually shaped some of these terms. Um, what kind of questions should travelers and even people like myself be asking to kind of separate greenwashing, from real genuine impact? What kind of things should we be looking at? You've talked about the lodges who are doing a good job. What does that really mean?
It's an interesting question, and I think there's a couple of things. You've got to, first of all, travel to Africa. I think that's the first most important decision. Then choose your travel provider, your tour operator, your specialist African tour operator really well? Have they been traveling to Africa on a regular basis? Can they give first-hand knowledge? And generally, those two things, you've really gone a long way to sorting out to make sure that your safari is going to make a difference. If you've just walked into a mom and pop corner shop and you've booked something just straight off the shelves, generally that's going to be the lowest denominator. It's going to be you've got less of a chance of making a powerful influence. But if you've chosen to go to Africa and you're booking through a really specialist African travel tour operator, then you're going a long way. And I just want to put this up. This is the book we did in 2013. And we could only find 50 lodges which did everything. We had a 102-point checklist. We employed a whole teams of proper environmental specialists who did generally a master's degree in environmental science. And they went around. They had 102 points to check out. And they started with the sewage. And then they went through the whole lot, and eventually they ended out in the front with the gin and tonics, where most of the invigilators on these things, they get stuck on the gin and tonics and the elephants out the front, and they get seduced by that, and they don't get any further. But we had proper folks in there, and only 50 lodges made it. The rest were pirates, or they were sitting on the fence and they didn't know what to do. And that was where technology came through and saved the day and moved a lot of those across to doing really good stuff. If we did that same book today, you'd probably find there'd be 1,000 lodges. So we've seen a wholesale change of people really doing good. So long as you're not booking the big brands like you've mentioned, and you keep out of that, and you go through your specialists and you go and stay at small lodges in the middle of nowhere, generally you will be doing so much good as opposed to being part of the problem. What we've done subsequently, if you want to really get yourself, we've done 2 books.
Yeah.
We did one on elephants.
Yeah.
And that's the stories about elephants all the way around Africa. And one which it hasn't hit the streets yet, but this is our latest little one, which is hitting the streets in October.
Oh, exciting.
And those kind of books really give you a good sense of, they're Pan-African books. Written by the specialists in those particular areas, East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, all the way down. And they kind of help to give an idea of what you should be looking for without punting any particular lodges. But it's a case of trying to get an idea of the variety of what's out there. And I think, coming back to what you said a moment ago, you've got to keep out of just going to want to be in the Masai Mara in August, or along the Chobe in August, or in Vic Falls in August, or where's another big busy area, going down to, say, Mana Pools in August. There's lots of times a year, so try and go out of sync. Or if you have to travel in August, there are so many magnificent places in Africa which hardly see a tourist, and it's a case of they all offer really wonderful experiences. And I think just try and break it up, but I think it starts with who you book with. If you book with somebody who's an experienced person who really knows Africa, who can get you into the minutiae, into the best lodges for you.
Yeah. And
that gets rid of 99% of the risk, and you end up doing good.
I actually had a question for you about that book. It was really a go-to kind of guide for conscious travelers. But as you said, now there's 1,000. Since there's so many new properties, is there do you have a website for that, for all of that? Or is there going to be any kind of an update? Or are you just basically, as you said, the smaller, there's just so many great lodges that are doing good work?
That's the thing. I think, that I've often chatted to David Bristow, my partner in that book, and said, should we do an upgrade? If we did one, it won't be a book, it'll be more digital.
Yeah.
And it's something which, we only got so many hours in the day.
Yeah. But I would love to look at all of those factors that you used to rate those lodges, and see which lodges would earn a place on the list. I think it would just
I
be,
think that list is on the web, Karin. I think
yeah,
and I haven't looked at it forever. There's a website called africasfinest.co.za. I think it's .co.za. And I think we in the original thing when we published that, we listed the key factors.
yeah,
And we actually created a little section which said, how would we design our ultimate lodge? And
yeah,
it starts with the communities and it ends with the sewage and everything in between. So it literally had all the different points which made the key ingredients to being a sustainable lodge, which does good, but also make sure that the guests have a great experience. And we must always remember that. We're not telling people to not have great times.
yeah,
You can have
yeah,
equally great times in a lodge which is doing good as you're doing within a pirate lodge. So it doesn't take away from the experience. It just makes sure that the cash you're spending is going deeper into making sure that we're part of the solution.
It's interesting. I think that when people think of a community experience, they really only just think about going and visiting a village, as opposed to understanding that community tourism is really all about the whole relationship with the land and the financial arrangement. Um, is there anything else that we should understand, or people who don't know as much about it?
People living in remote areas, it's not a zoo. A lot of people say, I want to go and see the local people. It's hang on, they've got lives. They've got,
Yeah,
not everybody wants to have a tourist poking the camera in their faces.
yeah,
It's And that's not the element. It's the element of what are you doing in that area to make sure that their lives are enriched.
yeah,
Our health, schooling, all those different things which you don't see. You can't go and knock on the door and make sure, but it's through your cash,
yeah,
through visiting, making sure that these things do happen on the ground through the money you're paying for being there. That's where the real rubber hits the road. That's where the change happens. It's not by going knocking on the door and saying, "Hi, can I take a picture?"
yeah,
Um, yeah, not every community wants to have people just barging in and just
right,
saying hi. Some do,
yeah.
some don't.
So is there anything exciting right now behind the scenes in African conservation that you might want to share with us or know about?
We the time is running out. We've got climate change.
Yeah,
We've got 8 billion people on this planet. We've got lots more people going to be born in Africa. We've got pressure on all our wildlife areas.
yeah,
And sadly, my generation has screwed it up. And we've got to make sure that the next generation actually is the last generation which can make a difference. And we're going to make sure that the next generation embraces this, the challenge and the baton which has been passed on to them. We've got to make sure that these folks are really wired up to making a difference. And it's not about cash. It's not about, how much money I can make out of it. It's got to be a sharing, nurturing environment and industry. The whole story of, people coming in and making a quick buck here and a big quick buck there, it's got to go. We can't have this overcrowding. We can't have people being paid in Guernsey and Jersey when the safari is happening in Africa. We can't have any of these kind of excesses. We can't have massive lodges in sensitive areas. The Botswana story is remarkable. You're not allowed to put one cement bag down when you build a lodge, not one cement bag. Now, where else in the world do you get that? We've got to get governments to start understanding. They've got to become responsible. They've got to set the rules. And when government doesn't understand the rules and allows all these concrete monstrosities to be built in the Serengeti and all the rest of it, and this is a shocker.
yeah,
We have to start changing. I mean, the Botswana model is a phenomenal model. Not that it's perfect. The problem we've got in Botswana is that they've relied on diamonds for so long, and tourism's played its part. It's 10% of the employment and all the rest of it. But diamonds was the main industry. So diamonds now You've got synthetic diamonds, you've got all these other diamonds, and people aren't, you know, sort of buying diamonds like they used to. So we've got an economy which is teetering, and we're going to have to really make amends on that side. But besides that, their model is remarkable. You have to, you know, we've got the most expensive and the most beautiful lodges in Botswana.
Yeah.
And we've also got the other ones which literally are the 180,000 hectares or 400,000 acres. We got those extremes. But you build a luxury lodge and you're not allowed to put one bag of cement, which means at the end of your lease, you can pack it up, take it away, and you will not see a sign of what's there.
Yeah.
We've got to start becoming responsible as governments, as the rule makers. But the same story, we also got to avoid overcrowding. We've got to understand that space is becoming more and more of a luxury, and that we don't need more and more lodges. We need more and more quality. We need more and more open spaces. So the next generation who's coming through, who will be involved in the tourism industry, have to understand that, guys, there's the new luxury is space. The new luxury is peace. The new luxury is Garden of Eden. It's not necessarily the gold taps. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're employing and we're making sure that we enough of the benefits and the upsides of tourism is being shared with local communities and with governments and with the whole value chain. Monies must be paid in the country where the guests are going.
We'll be back with more Safari Changemakers after this.
Safari ChangeMakers is brought to you by Artisans of Safari. Beyond the map lies adventure. With nearly 40 years guiding travelers into Africa's hidden sanctuaries, we craft journeys as individual as your fingerprint. Expertly designed, deeply personal. Connect with Karin at artisansofsafari.com for your collaborative consultation. Your safari, your story. Artisans of Safari.
Yeah, so I think, Karin, you know, where do we go? I think,
Yeah.
and that the one thing we are in Africa is that we are world champions at repeat and referrals. More than any other destination, we are the world champions.
True.
Why? For a number of reasons. I mean, the experience you get here, this warmth that you get, the Garden of Eden. But one of the greatest things, which is only being uncovered now by scientists, there's a group which is a mixture of Witwatersrand University in Johannesburg and Bergen University in Norway. They've got a grant of 660 million euros. So what's that? 700 million US dollars.
Yeah.
They've assembled the best team of scientists on the planet, and they're tracing back the origins of human beings. I'm not talking about these hominids, which were not us from millions of years ago. I'm talking about us.
Okay.
And the short version is that Africa was populated by Homo sapiens 300,000 years ago. And through an ice age, Africa became uninhabitable, except for a stretch of coastline to the east of Cape Town.
Okay.
Why was the stretch of coastline the last place that Homo sapiens could survive? Number one, no diseases, no malaria, no typhoid, a benign climate, clean potable water. But we had this rich coastline where a woman and a child could go along, and for the first time in human history, could go along this coastline and get all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all the omegas, all the special nutrients we needed to allow our brains to expand. And in an hour and a half, every single day, they could get all the food they needed. Prior to that, all the food gathering was hunter and gathering. So you'd go through 2 weeks of famine, and then you'd have a feast. And then you go 2 weeks of another famine. And that wasn't conducive to raising healthy kids and brains developing. But the combination of climate change, Arctic polars freezing up, Africa become uninhabitable except for the stretch of coastline, and then the ability to feed and get all the nutrients meant that this is the first time that the human brain was allowed to expand. And previously, it was always thought that the very earliest evidence of art, science, and technology was always in Europe. Africa was never the place where people could expand the brain. It was always an embarrassment to politicians that human beings had to leave Africa and then only developed their brains when they got to Europe. No. All the science is coming down that the earliest evidence of art, science, and technology is just to the east of Cape Town, along the stretch of coastline, and that every single person on this planet can trace their ancestry back to this stretch of coastline. Doesn't matter if you're Chinese, Mongolian, Texan, Trump, you, me.
Yep.
Every single person can trace their ancestry back to the stretch of coastline, to between 25 to 50 families. We have a shared mother which comes back here. And why I'm saying that is that every single person on this planet has got the DNA of African in them. And people often wonder why, when they come to Africa, they feel at home. Well, it's extraordinary welcoming. It's this extraordinary welcome feeling you get when you land in Africa. There's that vibe, there's that mood which you don't get from anywhere else in the world. And it's that sense of belonging in the environment, this sense of being, there's something about that this is home, but it was home. This is the key. Every single person can trace their great, I don't know how many thousands of generations ago, to the stretch of coastline. And then here we had the nutrients, our brains started to develop. And because in an hour and a half, we could get the food that we needed to sustain ourselves and our kids. But then what do you do for the other 22 and a half hours of the day? We start to develop social. We started to develop language. We started to develop all these other traits which made us become human beings as we know it today. We started to have the first modern behaviors way back. So the kind of thinking was, the first evidence of art was 30, 40,000 years ago in Spain and France. Now we've proved, well, this team of scientists have proved that the very earliest evidence of art, science, and technology is 120,000 years ago. Yeah. But that the entire human population came from this small band of hardy people who survived the onslaught of the Arctic freezing up and the climate change, which made Africa uninhabitable. And then the polars unfroze over time, and then Africa became inhabitable, and we started to move out. We populated Africa, and then we populated the world. So it doesn't matter. You can find a German, a Swiss, a Chinese, we all came from here. And that is part of the reason why we are world champions at referrals and repeats. It's not only the incredible experience you get in the lodges, it's not only the extraordinary experiences you get out in the fields, it's also you're coming home. So this is home.
That explains the thing that we can never explain, which is this feeling, that we tell people. We tell them, like, when you get there, you'll understand, and I experienced it on that first trip in 1989, when I went. And I think
it's that feeling, extraordinary feeling of being home.
Yeah. What are they finding? I mean, are they finding like cave relics? Are they finding art? Or just what are they?
Oh, so it's every time they go deeper and deeper, you're going back further in time.
Yeah.
So the first etchings were the remarkable ones, and they found that at the 74,000 years ago. So imagine they're going back to France and Spain 30, 40,000 years ago, Indonesia, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And you get these massive finds 10,000 years ago. Everybody goes, whoa. Yeah. So the very first bit of etchings and art they found was at the 74,000 years ago level. That was gobsmacking. For the first time, they could say, right, we did the first art here in Africa. Now they've gone deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and they're starting to find these jewelry implements. They've got an abalone shell. And this is 120,000 years ago. They've got an abalone shell, which has got bits of ochre, different colored ochre, which somebody 120,000 years ago would have used to either paint or whatever. So all these things, as they go deeper and deeper, we don't know where this is going to end. But this stretch of coastline, because it didn't, and also it's famous. So there weren't huge concentrations of lions and elephants and animals which would kill people. There were some elephants around and there were some lions, but not in huge quantities. So the abilities to people to survive here, and especially a mother and a child to survive, because you had these caves for the bad weather. So when the winter came and you wanted to hibernate in the cave, you could go in there and you could make your fires and all the rest of it. But most important, you had your source of food. And so you had everything: shelter, food, water, and not too many things which are going to eat you. So that was the recipe which made sure that we as a species, and it's hard to think that we as 8 million of us, you think it's impossible, but we were nearly extinct as a species, or maybe we should have been extinct as a species if we wanted to look after the planet as it is. But from 25 to 50, 60 families, that's it. That's all we got down to.
And they were eating seafood.
Everything. We were so some of the tubers underground were a carbohydrate, which would, in a form that a young 1-year-old kid could absorb, carbohydrates. So a lot of carbs on the planet, but not many of them were digestible by a young child.
Yeah.
So they had carbohydrates in the form of tubers, but along the coast, all these rich banks along the on these exposed reefs at low tide. So, oysters and mussels and all the rest of it, and these big perlmans. So there was always protein. And also these special minerals and all the omegas and all the rest of it. Just basically, for the first time, the full smorgasbord of all the different proteins and different minerals that you needed in your diet to live and to be healthy and to grow your brain.
I knew that this interview was going to have twists and turns, and that I was going to learn a lot, and I have, and I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but it's evening there now in South Africa. I'm here in Los Angeles, and it's 9 a.m.
It's red wine time. The Cape makes some of the best wine on the planet, the New World wines. You guys are New World as well.
Incredible.
And our wines now are outstanding. So I am ready to go and have a nice glass of red wine.
I don't blame you. Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing someone who also does really good work. You probably know them. Painted Wolf wine.
Oh yes, Emma's fantastic.
Yeah.
Emma's brilliant. She's really good.
Because I really just want to tell these stories of what people are doing in Africa and in different ways, and everything you've talked about today. As said, half the questions I didn't even get to, but I think for people to understand these elements is just so important, and how safaris can really make a difference. I think you've told.
But also, you don't have to go and donate the money to some NGO. Just go and have fun and do good while you're having fun. There's nowhere else that you can do that. It's a fantastic part of the whole recipe.
I think we as safari companies too, though, we want to pick. We sometimes want to donate portions of our profits towards causes and trying to figure out which ones we should support, because there's so many, which country and where should we donate part of our funds.
Yeah, no, but Karin, so this is a really good point to end off on.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite brand, Patagonia. They led the charge with the 1% for the planet.
Yeah.
So they take 1% of their gross revenues and they put it into a fund, and they use that to do good.
Yeah.
They've actually gone the whole thing. They've donated the whole company now. But so when we started Natural Selection, we said we've got to be 50% better than Patagonia. So we take 1.5% of our gross revenues and we put that into our foundation. This is our money. Before shareholders get cash, this is our money we put into the foundation, and that we use. That's now, it's something like, it's getting on to $1 million a year of money before shareholders. And we use that to go and do projects all around where we are. And we generally, what we do is we say, 80% of the money goes to that where the money was being earned, and 20% is for the big picture stuff. And so we've got an independent foundation. We've got a lady, Dr. Jen Lally. She's the most remarkable. She's a PhD. She studied lichens and the skeleton coast. And that's where she got her PhD. So she's a passionate Africophile. She heads up the foundation. And she and a board of independent people, they decide where that money is going to be spent. And it goes to really good causes around where we operate. And that's what we find is the right solution. So for the travel channel, we get this question often. Besides sending people to Africa, build in 1% of your gross revenue, do the 1% for the planet, put that aside, and then you will find, and the trick is to find where you're going to make the most impact. How are you going to make the most impact? And you put 5 phone calls around and you'll get some really good answers on that one. A lot of people don't do that, which is sad. But it's a case of we're all going to be part of the solution. Otherwise, there isn't going to be a solution. Yeah. We're going to have nothing. Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the reasons I started this, so that we can get these amplify voices like yours and get them out there. Fantastic. Karin, lovely to be with you. Thanks a lot. Keep well. All right. You take care. Enjoy that wine. That's our show for today. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Karin Jones.